everybody is playing everything, 1,000 notes per minute, and nothing is happening, and you feel no energy. It's mess. That's bad jazz.
One of the unique pleasures of having a podcast, for me at least, is connecting with somebody that I haven't met, but discovering how much shared history and interests and people we know, how much of that we have in common. And that was totally the case with today's guest. I am Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are chatting with Jaromir Honzak today. And he recently released an album called Hard to Understand, which I love the title of that. That's great. And like everybody, he is figuring out how to cope with the pandemic. Now, we chatted about a month ago, so you know how quickly things change, but he was locked away. Prague was shut down. I was shut down here in San Francisco, so we definitely talk about that. Many other things. The jazz scene in Prague. I was in Prague, well, you're going to hear in this conversation, but in 2016 for Bass Europe, and had such a great time. So we talk about just the jazz community of Prague, how it's developed over the years, the value of building a local scene, and many, many other topics. I really enjoyed chatting with Jaromir. Looking forward to doing it again in person, maybe in Prague. That'd be great. A quick shout out to the folks that have sponsored this podcast over the years, some of them over a decade. Upton Bass has been sponsoring this podcast for over a decade. Isn't that crazy? D'Addario Strings has been on board since 2016, and so many other great folks. The Bass Violin Shop for several years, Steve Swan as well, Kolstein Music, A440 Violin Shop, and Modacity. I think I've had them all on the podcast in some capacity pretty much at this point. So they're wonderful people. They are trying to figure it out and get through this. It's a tough time for small businesses. It's a tough time for anybody. So if you need any sort of gear or anything in your musical life, definitely check out the links and visit them. We're all looking forward to getting back to some kind of normal soon. So enough of the dour stuff, although I guess we're talking about the pandemic in this episode. Try not to cover it. I know you're hearing way too much about the pandemic right now, I'm sure. But anyway, we talk about much more than that. And I really enjoyed today's conversation with Jaromir Honzak. Great to meet you.
Yes.
I think we know a few people in common. Yuri Slavik, as I've known for many years. I was actually in Prague in 2016. There was this European Bass Congress. I don't know if you were involved. Yeah,
I was involved. Yes, actually, we played with my band. We played the concert at the Jazz Dog Club. I don't know. Yeah, it was. I think it was at the beginning of the convention or during. Yeah.
That was a wonderful time. That was my first time in Prague, and it was really cool to be at the Hamu too. Like that's a wonderful facility.
It is.
Yeah.
The thing is, we are. Like our jazz department is pretty new one. Like now we are existing for about like 8 or 9 years, maybe 9 years now. So
wow.
at 2016 it was like 5 years or so. So we are still pretty like new department, you know. So this whole building is dedicated to classical music, of course, and we are like small. Kind of intruder, small department, trying to catch up and trying to get our place, you know. But things are improving, things are getting better, and I think we like keep the level of students pretty high. So I think it's nice. It's nice.
It's always been interesting to me, and I know you studied in Berkeley, but back a while. But it's always been interesting to me to talk to folks from Europe, especially Central Europe or like Eastern Europe, and how much longer it seems to have taken to get jazz into the music school, the conservatory sort of system. I have a friend named from Poland named Krzysztof Pabian, great player. He lives in Chicago here in the States now, but he was talking about how he had to play jazz like in secret, when he was in music school, like it wasn't part of the program.
On the other hand, Poland, they have this famous in Europe or in Middle Europe, a jazz school in the Katowice, which is South Poland, and the school is running, I think, for nearly 40 years.
Wow, really?
So compared to Czech Republic, they are far ahead, and the Polish, it could be something in connection with the quality and the greatness of the Polish jazz scene, because the Polish jazz scene is really huge, and the quality is really high. On the other hand, Poland has like 40 million people, Czech Republic 10 million. So this is like 4 times bigger country, but they have this official, university level jazz education for about 40 years, and we have it like less than 10 years. So that's really something different.
Yeah, that's incredible that's been in place that long. Although it's great that that's happening in Prague and has been happening for the last 8 or 9 years. That's really cool. I guess I never realized how much bigger Poland was. My sense of size of some countries, especially in that part of Europe, it's I'm a little hazy on that sometimes.
Poland is a relatively, for European measures, relatively big country, 40 millions. Czech Republic, 10 millions, which is like small, medium, let's say, medium, small country. But the scene, the scene is improving a lot here, and the tradition is long. We have long jazz tradition, We have bands or musicians who played in 30s, 40s, so there is a long tradition. But for some reason, the jazz never, up until now or up till recently, never had this power to become like official art. To have the possibility to have the university level education, which is a shame, and I think it tells something about the Czech mentality probably, or Czech country maybe, because it really took time for jazz to become taken seriously as a serious art, serious kind of music.
But it's got a long tradition, it sounds like, of being performed and people enjoying it. That's, yeah. What I'd love to know, I always find it interesting what the jazz scene is like in different parts of the world. I live in San Francisco in California, so we have some great tradition, but it's gotten so expensive here that so many places have closed, but then they opened a major jazz venue here about 5 years ago called SF Jazz, and they've got 2 different halls, and I was watching Larry Grenadier play solo bass there about 6 months ago. So that's it. But is it mostly small clubs in Prague or in the Czech Republic, or what are some of the venues? What do some of the venues look like?
I would say if you want to play jazz seriously, you should be in Prague. Mm-hmm. Except maybe Brno, which is the second biggest city in Czech Republic. And by the way, they also have a jazz department at the Musical Academy in Brno. And their jazz department started 1 year before the Prague's jazz department. And I think Prague started or opened the jazz department just because they learned that Brno was already opened, because there is this competition, between the first city and second city, Prague and Brno. So when the second city opens, jazz department, then probably the people at the academy in Prague, has thought, oh well, maybe we should do it too. So they did that year later. So now, because of the school in Brno, it also helps the jazz scene. So there is very small but very nice jazz scene in Brno too. So I would say you can live in Brno and play jazz and be involved in that school, in the jazz department at the academy, and you can you can work really. But if you want to play with different bands and meet more people, and so that would be that is best in Prague, of course, because that's the major city, that's the capital. And the club scene was here before the change of the regime or revolution, how they call it sometimes, 30 years ago. And in Prague, typically, I can talk about situation in 80s, because that was the time when I started playing outside, So in 80s there were 2 or 3 clubs in Prague with daily program. And after the revolution in 1989, then they opened some new places, so there are much more places, but mostly they were tourists oriented. So basically we spent decades playing for tourists, which I don't say it's a bad thing, because this was situation which allowed us to play, so we could work on our music, we could have this practice of playing in front of audience, we could experiment with our stuff, so from this point of view it was great. Disadvantage of this situation is that you cannot develop any relationship with your audience, because you have certain people on Wednesday, and if you go there on Thursday, they are completely different people. So if they like the concert, or if they don't like it, it doesn't matter, because next time totally different people will be there, totally different audience. So how many years it is? It's 5-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It goes so fast, so I struggle to remember. This new club called Jazz Dog, because it's on the river, was open, and this is the first place which is really oriented on local audience, like Czech people, Prague people come there, and we have a feeling of more more possibility of starting any relationship with our audience, because if we play nice and people like it, we know that they can come next time when we play, because when we depend only on tourists, we never know if we see these people again. Probably not.
Yeah.
So this place, Jazz Dog, is first place after those years, after 1990, which is more oriented on local people, Czech people, and it's nice.
I can picture. I didn't visit that when I was in Prague, but I can picture that on the river. I spent a ton of time there during that week. It's what a
they have excellent program, because all these great American bands are coming very often to this place. So I was able to see a lot of fantastic concerts, and it's really unique experience at the small club, because if you see anybody, or I don't know, so any of these bands, if you see them on big stage, on festival, it's great, of course, but you don't get this exact impression what's their sound, what's sound coming from PA, so and it's little bit more artificial experience. And at a small place like Jazz Dog is, it's really natural, very natural physical experience, because we know that club, we know the stage, because we play there quite often, so we know exactly what's coming from the band and how these musicians sound like, which is very nice. I remember my one of those greatest experiences was this Mama Rose project. The drummer from Wayne Shorter, what's his name?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I can't recall his name right now. One of the greatest drummers. He plays with the Wayne Shorter Quartet with Johnny Mitchell.
I'm blanking too. I'll look it up.
Brown Blade.
Okay.
Brown Blade.
There we go.
Brown Blade. And Brown Blade, besides of his great drum playing, he also has a band which is called Mama Rose, or maybe it's name of their first CD. And it's completely different music. It's not actually it's not jazz. It's this Americana kind of music. He's singing and playing guitar in his band.
Oh, wow.
There's another drummer, white guy playing drums. There is another guitarist playing solos, another female singer playing second voice. Completely different style of music. But from my point of view, this was one of greatest jazz experience, because this was just opposite of bad jazz. In bad jazz, everybody is playing everything, 1,000 notes per minute, and nothing is happening, and you feel no energy. It's mess. That's bad jazz. This was just the opposite. Nobody plays nothing. If you have a look on the drummer, he was playing nothing. Boom, boom, nothing. The guitar, nothing. Nobody plays nothing, and the energy was like atomic plant. It was such a great concert, unbelievable.
Wow.
So this was like definition of really great music, because everything was so locked in. Everything was so functional. Everybody was playing just supportive in this supportive way. Nothing more, nothing less. Really fantastic. And the sound, they achieved in this club, that, in my opinion, the sound, the acoustics at the Jazz Dog is not 100% the best, because they have these large windows, which looks great, but for sound it's a little hard, like hard. But this Brown Blade band, they had such a warm, gentle sound. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, it's great.
So this club is really great, that we can play for our audience, for Czech audience, and also very often witness great concerts of the best musicians in the world.
Yeah, it's so important to have be able to have a local audience like that. That's such a key thing, because you're so right about the tourist thing. I mean, it's great to play for a full house, but that's developing a following and developing people that really appreciate jazz. That's something that this place in San Francisco, SF Jazz, has been great at. There are all these people. You see the same people coming back every time. They also have windows like you're describing, but they're windows onto the street, and actually it's kind of cool because you see all the people people walking by and they're like, hey, look at that. You know, maybe not the perfect acoustic, but it works. And, you know, I was in Sydney, Australia recently, and I was chatting with some of the musicians in the Sydney Symphony. And you want to talk about a place that's almost all tourists. You know, they're one of the few orchestras in the world, the Sydney Symphony, where I think it's something like 80% of the people that come see them bought tickets that day just because they're at the Sydney Opera House. And like that's great, but you know, that's so different from people that are coming back each week, each month, each year to see, and the really the appreciators of the art form. That's really cool that you got a place like that in Prague.
Yeah, it's nice. But you know, on the other hand, tourists can be a really great audience, you know, because sometimes it varies, you know. Sometimes people come to that, but that applies to the Czech audience as well. Sometimes they come just to have fun and talk, you know.
Yeah.
And they don't pay much attention to music. But when people come just for music, listening to music, then it can be great concert, and it doesn't matter if they are local people or there are tourists, you know, because if they like jazz and if they not know the music, then it's great, you know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's been fun digging through some of your albums, and you've got so much stuff out there. And I was listening to the new album, which Hard to Understand.
Oh.
Right, and I like the email I got. I think from your publicist it was just, I love the title of that album. That's a really playful title.
Well, the title, you know, it's quite a story because the producer of the album, you know, it's a guy. His name is Petr Ostrochov. He's a lawyer. And he has this Indie music label, you know. He owns this label, and he produces our stuff, our CDs. And he, you know, we made the recording in what was it? November, around middle of November. And he wanted to, or he needed, you know, to CD come out by the end of the year. So he tried to make everything to do it, you know. So he needed to make the cover as soon as possible. So he asked me for the title, so they will be able to print the cover, including the title, you know. I had names for like half of the tunes, and one of them was this Hard to Understand. So I told him all those 5 titles, and he liked Hard to Understand. So I said, okay, I'm fine with it, no problem. Let's call the album Hard to Understand. But then, you know, there was, during the recording and even after recording, there was this sequence of weird events, weird things, and we kind of started to think that that's all because of this title, you know. That weird things happen, and it's just because we titled the album Hard to Understand. So, and then, you know, then the CD came out at the middle of January this year. So basically, too late for the album to be placed in those charts, you know, and all those, I don't know how it's called in English. You know, when you apply for any prize or something, you know, they make these reviews of CDs which came out during the whole year. So my album came too late for this, you know. Mm-hmm. So again, Hard to Understand, you know. But that was the way it all worked. So probably that's how it had to happen.
Yeah. Maybe the title threw everything for a loop. That's funny. What do you do when you record an album? How much do you have like pre-composed, or how much do you do when you're actually in the studio? I always think it's interesting. Like, people seem to have very different tactics for how they approach. How do you approach this one, or how do you approach recording albums in general?
Usually I have the heads I have written completely. Melody, harmony, form. That's all written and like pre-decided. But then, of course, it all depends on the band. I feel lucky because I really like musicians in my band. We've been playing for some years with the guitar player David Doruška. We know each other for like 25 years. Then the others, with the others, the relationship is much shorter. But we play in this band for about let's say 5 years or so. So we know each other pretty well, and I know that I don't have to tell anything, about the music. I was composing on Sibelius, and I was making this demo, this MIDI demo, so I could email them the demo from the Sibelius, so they get some rough idea how it sounds. But then, their approach, their improvisations, their solos, that's up to them, of course. And I know that I don't need to tell them anything. I don't tell the drummer, this tune should be like this. Maybe you could play that, or to tell the guitar player something, or sax player. I know that I don't need to tell them anything, and they will sound better than I can imagine. So that's kind of luxury I feel, because I've experienced this many times, that when I try to play my music with musicians I didn't know before at some international events, some special occasions, usually it didn't work, or it didn't work too much, because these songs are not typical jazz songs. They need musicians who have ear for this kind of sound, for this kind of influence. So these guys, they are really open to this kind of music, and they are very empathic. They have this musical empathy, and that's really great. So I know that if I put the music in front of them, it will sound better than I can imagine, or I would be ever able to tell them, to explain them by words, using words that makes no sense. So, I was surprised on this album, when we make this recording during 3 days. Actually, the first day we almost the whole day we spent by solving some buzz coming from guitar and bass, hard to understand.
Yeah, there we go.
And then in the evening, one guy had a gig, so we had to stop like at 7 in the evening. So we decided, okay, if we have to stop because of this gig, we are going to visit Herbie Hancock concert, So we ended up on Herbie Hancock concert. So basically, we spent the next 2 days like really making the recording, and then we were finished. And I told the sound guy to measure the length of the recording, and he measured like 38 minutes or something. So I said, "Shit, what? We have 8 tunes, and it's only like 38 minutes." or so. So then I decided to put the solo piece, the solo bass piece, to get at least a little bit more duration, So now it's like 40 minutes something at least. But it's very interesting because on the CDs which we made before, I also have like 8 or 9 tunes on it, and it's around 50 minutes, So on this album, for some reason, the atmosphere was, I don't know, the mood was that no tune is longer than, I don't know, like 5-6 minutes. Most of the tune have like around 4 minutes, which is quite short. Yeah. But it for some reason it came out like this. So
It's interesting. It's interesting how that can a project can have a life like that, like something, and especially if you have a similar number of pieces. Yeah, but that's funny how things have that sort of organic flow to them.
Exactly. Exactly. Actually, I must say you are calling in a quite interesting time, because yesterday, the government took another measures against this coronavirus, Mm-hmm. So now we for one month we have all actions cancelled. They stop any public events attended by more than 30 people. Before it was 100 people. So I was able to play gig with my band at the Jazz Dog, like 3 days ago. But yesterday they made the limit 30 people. So which means everything is cancelled. All concerts, all events, all public events, everything. So now we have at least 1 month now it's for 1 month, but nobody knows if it will be prolonged. So minimally 1 month we are sitting at home, enjoying ourselves, making no music and no money.
Yeah, you might be writing some songs. I know, 'cause it's interesting because we're experiencing the exact same thing.
To compose music, exactly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because the same thing is happening here. Yesterday, our mayor said here in San Francisco, no gatherings of more than 250 people, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets down to 30. Like you're saying, they canceled school for the next 3 weeks. Every concert, every sporting event, and a lot of my musicians that do mostly freelance, play clubs and gigs and orchestras. All their work has been canceled, just like you're describing. So it'll be interesting to see. And I was actually just chatting with a bassist who's a principal bassist of one of the orchestras here in California. I was talking to him, and he was saying, talking about how many musicians are just sitting at home right now that are, so he's thinking, is there any way we can all try to work? I'll bet that there are going to be a lot of new albums and projects and all these creative people sitting at home, So.
Exactly. Write music, practice bass, and I'd like to get in a little bit into the Reaper, recording program.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm totally new, of it. I've never done it. My computer experience and with Sibelius notation. Mm-hmm. So I would like to explore a little bit this recording stuff.
Well, you got some good time. Exactly. Yeah, me too. I've got all these projects that I've been. I find myself with a lot more time to work on those. So.
Yeah. It's a very special situation, because you could never imagine to have 1 month with nothing, no school, no teaching. I teach also, no teaching, no music, no rehearsals, nothing. So if you don't plan it and it comes, it just falls from the sky. It's quite interesting experience. Now you have this empty window and you can decide what to do. Suddenly, totally different different situation.
Oh, it's crazy. It's funny because a lot of the work I do is over the computer these days. I still play bass and play, but I probably like over 50% of what I do is like what we're doing right here. And so like my actual life hasn't really changed that much. Yeah. But it's weird to go like my wife and I went out to our local cafe yesterday, and we were like the only people there, and we live on this really busy tourist strip. And I was looking, and you could look one way for like 500 meters, and then the other way, and there was like not one person out. It really is. It's kind of creepy.
So you were safe.
Yeah. Well, so far. Yeah. Well, I'd love it. Just one more. It's great. It's great to chat. Hopefully, we can meet in person one of these days. And after this whole, I'm planning on getting back to Prague and Central Europe. The last time I was there was that 2016 Congress. But I'm always interested in how people like you end up putting things into Sibelius. Like I love how people come up with ideas. Like I just love to know like how do you create the heads for your songs, or like do you start on your bass? Do you start on the piano? Do you just sit in front of Sibelius or are you singing songs into a recorder? I think it's interesting how people work. How do you come up with ideas and get them eventually into Sibelius?
This is a great question. Usually I need to force myself to start anything. Mm-hmm. I am quite lazy person, but on the other hand, I know that I need to push myself, Mm-hmm. So when I feel it's time, I basically sit at the piano, and I start something, start some simple motif. I'm not a good piano player, so I just play some simple. I try to come up with some musical ideas. Actually, no, to be honest, I don't start at the piano. I start at my archive, like music with my old musical ideas. I have these old papers, old sheets sitting on the piano, and I go through them. I play my old ideas, old musical ideas, and from like 90% doesn't work. I don't even have idea what I was meaning by this. But like maybe one tune usually comes from these old ideas, and mm-hmm. This was on last CD. It was this tune, this Foolish Senior. The original motif was old idea of mine, which I found, among these old sheets. Mm-hmm. So that gives me some confidence, that I think, okay, well, great, I have one idea, so I start to make tune of it, because you can have one idea, but you don't have a tune.
Yeah.
So I start work around this idea to make it a tune. And then when I have one tune, it feels much better than to have nothing. So I have more confidence to start something new. And then I sit at the piano and I start to come up with something. And usually it takes me several days to come with something, with some musical idea. And then I usually don't work like for too long. I usually sit there, let's say, for 2 hours. Then I come up with something. I try some idea. If I like it, I put it down. I write it down into Sibelius, and I leave it. And I come back the next day, and the next day I know better if it's good or not. Sometimes I like it, and when I like it, I say, oh great, it's nice, and I will continue this direction. But very often it happens that I play it back and I don't like it. I think, oh, what, stupid, forget it. Let's erase it, and let's start something new. So I'm not fast at composing, and I don't compose for like a long period of time. I need to draw some little idea, go away, and come to it, return to it the next day, and then I'm able to evaluate if it's nice, if it's good or not, and if I like it, I continue in this direction. I try to remember the original emotion. I try to remember the emotion and develop the original feel. And sometimes the hard part comes when it's time to write the B section, because I can have the A section ready. Okay, A section, nice, but what's next? Now I need B section, something different, and some contrast. And it also takes time to come up with the B section, which would be contrasting to the A section, but it would be in line with the original music, in line with the original emotion, not killing it, not going somewhere totally different direction. So that's another thing which takes time to come up with B section. Sometimes I try several B sections. This tune on the new album, it was this tune Cryptic, where I have B section, and during the course of preparing the music, I decided to change it. So I erased the original B section. I come up with new B section.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's always interesting. Go ahead.
So basically, I think most of the time I work at the piano, on the piano. Sometimes, which was also the case of this tune, Cryptic, this tune I started on bass guitar. So basically, I composed the bass line, which repeats over and over. It's like eight measures, I think, line which repeats through the whole A section. So I composed this while we were in the summer at our summer cottage. I don't have a piano there, but I have my bass guitar, so I composed this on bass guitar. But when we came back to Prague, I finished the tune on the piano again. So sometimes the bass is inspirational. Some bass line can be double bass or bass guitar. So sometimes the tune starts on the bass, but most often it starts on the piano.
Yeah. Cool. I just think it's so interesting how people approach things in different ways. And I can relate a lot to, especially going back in the archive like you're describing. And that's like my this secure tool to gain some confidence, because the empty paper is scary. Yeah, that blank page. I know. No, it's great.
Exactly. The blank page is scary. So I try to help my confidence by finding something from the past, and when I discover something which works or has this potential to become a new music, it gives me more confidence to start something new. Yeah. That's
well. Exactly. I love it. It's a cool element. It's great to meet you on Facebook like this. Let's continue this. Let's continue this in person at some point. I'd love to see you play at the Jazz Dock on the river after this coronavirus is gone.
I would love to. I would love to see you playing. And so let me definitely know. And when you come to Prague, we can meet with Jiří Slavík. We can have some nice bass convention, at either with basis or with beer.
Oh, there we go. That sounds good. That sounds good to me. I appreciate or both. That's a good day. Well, I'll look forward to that. Hopefully soon. But I really appreciate chatting. I'll put this all together, and I think everything on your website. I think I have everything I need. But yeah, probably in the next month or so, we'll get this out, and I'll reach out if I need anything else. But I think everything is up online. So it's great. And anytime
if you need something, just let me know. You know, my English is quite horrible, so we can write by email or something.
Well, your English is better than my Czech. I think that's 100% true. And no, this is great. And anytime you got another album coming out or anything that's coming up, let's do this again. I have people on 3, 4, 5 times or more. So it'd be great to we'll just keep in touch.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being interested. Thank you for reaching out. It's great pleasure, and I hope we meet in Prague or somewhere else. Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting. And folks, check out his website. It's linked up. And by the way, check out the photo. I love his photo that he's got on his website. We used it for this episode. So just look at whatever device you're watching this on and check that out. That's a cool photo. Very epic. I need one of those myself. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, you are probably really into this podcast or someone into this podcast, or you haven't been able to reach for the controls and turn it off. So sorry about that if you can't do that. But I just appreciate having you along on this journey with me. I'm always trying to find different ways to connect with the bass community, and so many things have evolved over the years. I'm doing a lot more video these days. The email list has really grown. I've not been doing any events like you or like everybody right now, so that's certainly changed, but everything's changing. But one thing that's not changing for me, and I'm so appreciative of having it, is having this podcast, and it really feels like something that's grounding me, and that, boy, I've been doing this podcast longer than anything professionally. I guess we'll call this a profession in my life. So I have just really been enjoying this personally, and I love hearing from people. I hear from people every single day from all different parts of the world and how they're listening to this and that it means something to them, and that's just so wonderful. So if you've never reached out, reach out. feedback@contrabassconversations.com. I would love to hear from you, and let me know guest suggestion, topic suggestion, ways to pass the time during a pandemic. Any of that would be much appreciated. Thank you to the team that puts these episodes together. They are Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchey, Mitch Moehring, Trevor Jones, and Krista Kopper. And Mitch makes beautiful award-winning basses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Learn more at mitchmoehring.com. I am your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.